So Sean is asking, when God called Moses in the wilderness, Moses said that he isn't good at speaking. Does this imply that he is not fluent in Hebrew?
Do you want that, Tina?
I can take a shot at it real quick. So there's different interpretations of what Moses meant when he said, I am not eloquent in the book of Exodus. And he says, I can't speak, I have a stammering tongue. And some people believe that it was because, he hadn't spoken Hebrew in so long. So that could be a piece of it. And other people say that he actually stuttered, like he was a stutterer. Um, and so there's different takes on exactly what Moses meant when he said that. But I don't think that there's a very clear biblical explanation from what I've gathered exactly. But I think it could be some form of maybe even both or one or the other. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure exactly if he meant, he wasn't really familiar with Hebrew anymore, which would make sense because he had spent 40 years in the wilderness. Um, and so he was, living with the Midians at that time, so they probably spoke a different language than the Hebrews. And then he also had spent most of his, adult life before that in the Pharaoh's house, so that he was speaking Egyptian. And so it was only from, those young years that he knew the Hebrew language. So I don't know. I don't know if it was just that or if he also he didn't feel like he was a confident, good speaker. Um, and so that could have been it too. I don't know. Jay, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I think maybe just the extra thing to keep in mind too is, yeah, because he came from this royal background, he grew up in the house of Pharaoh, he probably would feel like he's going to be held to even higher standard and would be ashamed to come and be speaking poor man's English, or what would sound like poor man's English, but to them, be um, a lesser form of Hebrew. So who knows? Yeah, he probably just the story is he's trying to come up with excuses, right? That's the point there, and
Yeah.
God, I love how God gets upset, even almost like
He's
this
like,
fiery
you made
anger.
man's mouth. He's like, didn't I? So
You
if I
know who
tell
you're
you to
talking
do
to.
something, I'm going to give you the tools to do it. Yeah.
And look what happens. He ends up being the greatest leader that Israel ever had.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And like one of the closest people who ever walked with God. I mean, his face shone with the like literally shined with the glory of God. He really it took time, but as he, surrendered and submitted to God's will, he got to know God. And I think like the life of Moses is probably one of the best stories of somebody of like how to have a walk with God.
Mm.
Especially if you weren't raised in that atmosphere, because like the first 40 years, he's basically he is a Hebrew, but he lives mainly in the house of Pharaoh, the Egyptian, which was, a heathen. And then the next 40 years, God like teaches him all that stuff in the wilderness. So he learns how to be a shepherd, which is like the most humble and frustrating jobs you could have. Have you ever taken care of sheep? They're not fun to take care of. And then God, like, then he's like, okay, now you've unlearned that. Now the next step is the next 40 years, we're going to wander in the wilderness. You're going to shepherd my people. And he just, you know, through time, he just grows and grows with the Lord. And I just see so many beautiful things in his character that I'm like, wow, I hope I can be like that in my development of my character. So yeah, but that's a really great question because yeah, it's not super clear exactly what Moses means in that passage in Exodus.
What intrigues me is how God's solution was, okay, fine, you won't speak. You just tell Aaron what to say, then Aaron would say it. So it'd almost be funny, Moses like, sort of whispering in Aaron's ear, and then Aaron speaks it. And we're not told at what point really that Moses finally had the boldness to just speak himself, right, without Aaron. But that's an interesting thing to me.